So this is my 15.4 assignment about an injury rehab process for two different athletes. So the first athlete is a professional footballer called Oscar Roberts. He plays as a winger and has just suffered a ruptured Achilles in the final of a cup competition. So this happened because he was on the end of a bad tackle, which caused his Achilles to rupture, and the estimated recovery time is between 4 and 6 months. So, firstly, here we can see the plan of what the rehab program will include. Uh, there will be 4 phases or stages that will occur during the 6 months, and these will include a acute phase and a functional movement phase, a strengthening exercises phase, and a sport specific phase. So each phase has a different goal that will be needed to be achieved before moving on to the next phase. So the goal of the first phase is to reduce the pain and inflammation. And so the main focus here is to rest until all of that pain has gone and the swelling has been reduced. The next phase focuses on introducing light static stretches to help start to improve the range of motion for the joint. Maybe adding some ballistic and dynamic stretches, as well as balance and stability exercises. The main aim at this point in the program is just to add some stability and range of motion through introducing proprioception. Phase 3 is all about strengthening that joint so the athlete can stand and balance on it. Bodyweight exercises and weight exercises will be added, which would also include the likes of resistance bands as well. And then, as well as this, introducing eccentric loaded stretches and exercises. Finally, this takes us up to the final 2 months, which is all about sport-specific training and regaining specific skills that are essential for the sport. So for this client, kind of skills such as passing, shooting, crossing would all be worked on. And this will be done through introducing lateral movement patterns and working on quick changes of direction, as well as introducing more aggressive and speed kind of based exercises. And then using the sport specific drills so that these skills like the shooting, the crossing, the passing, etc. can all be improved. So this graph here helps to show the 3 stages of healing that the client will experience when going through the rehab program. So this first blue line shows the inflammation stage, which is the immediate response to any injury. This will include the initial pain that is felt by the injured sufferer, as well as the swelling that may appear to the injured area. Next is the orange line, which represents the repair stage, and this focuses on the stability, the range of motion, and the strength of the joint. And then the final stage is this grey line, which is the remodel stage, which is where the client is able to balance and put pressure on the joint or the injured area, but the scar tissue is still forming. So next we move on to this this table, which shows the different types of treatments that will be used. And in total, there are 6 different treatments that are going to be included. But these will kind of all be more important and used at different points throughout the process. So these numbers in this table represent the kind of importance of each method. So, for example, the ones next to taping here suggest that it's not going to be very important for these first 2 weeks here, because we aren't going to be focusing on supporting the injury. Instead, these 9s next to cryotherapy and the 8s in thermotherapy suggest that these 2 treatments are going to be important and going to be the main focus for the injury, because we want to increase blood flow and reduce pain and swelling. So this table may look a bit confusing, but down here I have kind of put into kind of written form what that table suggests. So in the inflammation stage, we're going to be treating the injury with cryotherapy, hence with the 9s and the 6s, for 3 times a day for 2 weeks. And we're going to partner this with thermotherapy, hence the 8s. But and we're also going to use this for 3 times a day for 2 weeks. So we're going to kind of partner the hot and cold together, so that they work really efficiently. And then I've also added in some electrotherapy, not as much, kind of 4s, 3s, but we're still going to be using that once a week for the first 5 weeks. Then into the repair stage, we have taping the injury every day. So that's where the taping comes in here for the 6 weeks, because we want the injury to be supported while we're doing the exercises. We are still going to be using thermotherapy, so we drop off to kind of 6s and 6s for both, but not as much, maybe once or twice a day for that 6-week period. And then we're still using the electrotherapy, kind of 4s and 3s, once a week. Then in the remodel stage, we start to introduce kind of soft tissue massages at approximately 16 weeks. So if we scroll up here, we can see 16 weeks after this, we start to introduce some soft tissue massages and IASTM. So we want to use this because it's going to help to increase that blood flow and reduce any tightness that may be felt. So we're going to be using them for once. We're going to be using soft tissue massages for once a week for the 10 weeks till the end of the program, and then alongside that, ISTM, which is instrument-assisted soft tissue massages, will be used on the side for the last 5 weeks, once a week. So at this point, hence the ones, cryotherapy and thermotherapy aren't 1s and 2s. Cryotherapy and thermotherapy aren't going to be used, aren't going to be essential for treatment at this stage. However, they will still be used if the client is feeling kind of achy or hurting after exercise. So, and this graph here just helps to show kind of visually what treatment will be going on and during what period. So then finally, we have the short-term, medium-term and long-term goals that have been set for the client. Some short-term include keeping a positive mindset, because we don't want them to kind of lack motivation. We want them to stay positive and feel like they are achieving their goals and they are getting better. Introducing small daily exercises, so kind of keeping the joint moving and not letting it stay still and kind of maybe seize up. Attending training or matches, I think it's really important because we don't want them to feel isolated and kind of reduce motivation. We want them to still be interacting with their teammates whenever possible. And then arguably the most important, get enough sleep. Aim for kind of 8 to 9 hours. We really want to focus on this because this is a time where our body is going to be able to kind of repair and rebuild all that muscle tissue and the scar tissue while we're sleeping. Medium term, building up fitness levels, kind of regaining technical abilities, passing, shooting, and then maybe possibly maybe kind of a long term towards the end of mid-term, playing match, maybe for the reserves or a youth team, under 23s for example, but we're just getting back that kind of match fitness, the experience of what it's like to play in a game again. And then the long term, the main one, get back into the first team squad at your club. So here we have the exercises that will happen during the program. So this is showing the exercises for phase 2, which is the functional movement. We can see the first exercise is a standing wall stretch, which if I go onto PowerPoint, we can see here an example of. And I've kind of, for each exercise, I've added some progressions and maybe some regressions. However, for this one, I don't think there's any regressions needed because it is a basic stretch, and so we don't need to kind of make it easier. However, to make it harder, we could try and stretch without holding the wall, kind of without giving ourselves support, kind of making ourselves do it by ourselves. And then to make that kind of even harder, maybe holding some weights, adding some more kind of weight to the exercise to make it kind of more challenging for the client. Then in terms of reps and sets, I haven't kind of done traditional reps. I've done hold the stretch for 8 seconds, and then relax for 10 seconds, and then we're going to do that 5 times. And then the same with band stretch, which is another exercise, which again, if I flick to PowerPoint, we can see here. Making it easier, maybe stretch without the band, so just focusing on kind of moving the Achilles, the ankle area, to kind of get that movement and that range of motion back. However, to make it harder, increase the resistance of the band, making it more kind of putting more pressure on the joint, making it harder and more challenging. And then reps and sets again, 8 seconds, relax for 10, and repeat this 5 times. And then the final exercise for this phase, I've gone for a towel or band pickup, whatever you want to call it. Again, can be seen here. To make this easier, maybe use some support while standing, so whether that's holding onto a wall or holding onto maybe someone's hand. And then doing the exercise, giving yourself a little bit of support, but still kind of isolating the Achilles to do it itself. Alternatively, if that's still too hard, you could start off with sitting down and using both feet, or sitting down using one foot. It's still going to kind of focus on the Achilles, but it's going to make it a bit easier. But if that is too easy for you, you could make it harder by increasing the weight of the object, or alternatively maybe putting some ankle weights on to kind of challenge yourself a bit more. And reps and sets, I've gone for 5, so pick it up and drop it 5 times. We're going to rest for 10 seconds, and then we're going to do it again 3 times. So next, phase 3, strengthening the joint. So the first exercise, I've gone for lunges, which on PowerPoint we can see an example of here. To make these easier, we could go, again, kind of adding some support. So whether that's holding onto a wall and lunging, or holding onto someone's hand. And then kind of basic progression is adding weight. So whether that's a barbell on the shoulders or holding dumbbells, it's going to make it more challenging and ultimately strengthen up that joint even more. Reps and sets, for all of the exercises in strengthening, I've gone for 10 reps, but then rest for 20 seconds, and we're going to do this 3 times. Next exercise, squats, another basic exercise here. Again, making it easier, maybe a box squat, so putting a kind of chair or bench beneath you, and to give you a bit more support when you go down. And then making it harder, again, adding weight, so whether that's some dumbbells or a barbell on the shoulders, whatever is going to help to make it harder and more challenging. Next, we have step-ups, can be seen here. So this picture shows with a weight, but we can start off without, like we've done for the other exercises. Making it easier, so decrease the box, the height of the box, so making it slightly easier, but still kind of focusing on the same movement patterns. Alternatively, making it harder, we've got increasing the height of the box, and also, again, like the other exercises, adding weights. And then final exercise for strengthening, we've got box jumps, or bench jumps we could see here. And then kind of similar progressions and regressions here, so decreasing the height, or alternatively jumping on the spot, so kind of just focusing on the kind of landing process of landing on that Achilles and strengthening that. And then progressions, increasing the height again and adding weights. So finally, the exercises for phase 4 towards the end of the program. The first exercise, we've got cone agility. So you can see an example of that here. Kind of focusing on, like we said earlier, the kind of quick change of direction and the speed. To make this easier, we've got the decreased speed. So we're still focusing on kind of lunging or sidestepping to each cone, and then really kind of pushing off powerfully, but we're just doing it at a slower pace. If this is too easy, we could then maybe hold some dumbbells, or a kind of better idea, maybe put on some ankle weights, and really that will help to kind of make the power even more powerful and increase that even more, which will ultimately kind of boost the sport specific and boost your performance even more. Next is speed ladder. Again, PowerPoint, we could see this here. Many different variations for going for a speed ladder. So to make it easier, I've put easier way. So maybe focus on just going through 1 foot in each cone, 1 foot in each step. And then kind of slowly building yourself up to more complex and more challenging variations. Or making it harder, kind of harder variations, and also again adding weights or holding dumbbells, adding ankle weights. And then the final exercise, we've got shuttle runs, kind of basic, just running from side to side. To make this easier, we could decrease the distance or the speed, the distance between the shuttles or the speed that we're running at. Or to make it harder, increase that distance and speed, and also adding, again, ankle weights or holding dumbbells. So that was the first client, and now we're going to move on to the next client, which again is another footballer, a professional one, but a different position and a completely different injury. So this athlete is called Alex Campbell. He plays football, as I said. He's a defender, professional, like kind of standard. And this injury this time is a shoulder dislocation. So this happened, we could say he went up for a header with an opponent and fell to the ground. He's landed awkwardly on the shoulder and has caused it to dislocate. Again, estimated recovery time 4 to 6 months. And again, like the previous plan for the last athlete, we've got the kind of stages, the acute, the functional movement, the strengthening exercises, and sport specific. And this is all kind of going to be the same or similar. It's towards the treatment and the exercises that are going to vary. And just to mention here, this review, so at the end of each phase, what will happen is there will be a review process of, have you achieved the goals? How are we ready to move on to the next phase? And if we're not, then we may have to increase the time for one phase. So, for example, if during the strengthening exercises phase, the athlete isn't ready to move on to sport specific, the joint still isn't strong enough, or they just don't feel that they're ready, we may have to increase this phase from maybe 9 to 16 weeks to 9 to 18 weeks or 20 weeks. So it's just about kind of adapting it and changing it to the athlete's needs. So again, we can see the graph for inflammation, repair and remodel, the 3 stages of healing. Very similar to the last athlete. But this is where it starts to kind of change and become different. So again, the different treatment options, I've gone for 5 this time. I've got taping, thermotherapy, cryotherapy, acupuncture or dry needles, and then deep tissue massage. This graph again showing the kind of importance and time process of when each injury will occur. And then we have the written kind of format of when and why each treatment is used. So during the inflammation, the first kind of couple of weeks, we're going to be taping that shoulder, putting it into a sling maybe as our main priority, because we want the shoulder to remain supported and kind of strapped up so that it isn't at risk of becoming further injured. Thermotherapy and cryotherapy, again, hot and cold together. Again, one on, one off kind of thing. Going to really reduce that swelling, increase the blood flow, and overall stimulate the kind of recovery process. Repair, continue with the thermo and cryotherapy, really kind of just focusing on the reducing that swelling, getting it back to normal size, and increasing the blood flow, getting some oxygenated blood in there to really stimulate the muscle and the joint to start kind of repairing. However, I have put here slowly reducing this over time, so we can see as the kind of numbers decrease, this is showing the kind of the aim of reducing the treatment as the process continues, because we want to kind of focus on the sport and getting the injuries, getting the exercises kind of going without having to treat the shoulder all the time. Then finally, in the remodel stage, we can see here the 5s and for acupuncture and dry needles, and also deep tissue massage. It's going to help to break up the scar tissue and the knots and any knots that may be in the muscles around the area, whilst also again improving circulation and range of motion, and ultimately reducing the pain that the athlete's feeling. So again, I've kind of gone with similar goals for the last athlete, because it is kind of very similar for pretty much any athlete really. So again, keep positive mindset. We really need them to kind of be positive and focus on getting better. And then the kind of small daily exercises, the kind of strengthening and just keeping the joint active. So maybe that's just rotating the the shoulder, just keep it moving. Again, attending training or matches, kind of just avoiding isolation really, kind of not letting those motivation levels drop. And then again, getting enough sleep, really allowing our bodies to repair and kind of grow whilst we are asleep. And then the medium term, building up fitness levels, regaining those technical and tactical abilities. So passing, maybe jumping up and heading the ball, throw-ins, basic things for a defender. And then playing a match for the reserves or a youth team again. So just getting that experience after such a long time out, 4 to 6 months. We just want to focus on getting that experience, getting that match fitness back, ready for ultimately the long-term goal, getting back into the first team. So again, like the previous scenario, we've got the exercises for each phase. So this is phase 2. So the first exercise is hold arm across chest, which I could show here in PowerPoint. So basic exercise, just kind of holding that and flexing the shoulder across to increase the range of motion. So to make it easier, we could kind of just, without holding our arm with our other arm, just bring the arm across as much as we can. See how far we can get our shoulder across our arm, across our chest, sorry. Making it harder, so we could, instead of holding, we could maybe add a resistance band against the door or something and try and pull that, really focusing on the chest muscles and the shoulder muscles around strength, and just not strengthening, but increasing the range of motion for these muscles. Again, with reps and sets, haven't really gone for traditional reps. I've just gone, hold it for 10 seconds, 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off, and repeat this 3 times. Next one, we're adding in some resistance bands. We can see here, kind of like a T shape. I'm not really sure what to call it, but really focusing on the kind of the movement and the pliability of the chest muscles, and ultimately the range of motion for the shoulder joint. To make this easier, we could say we could decrease resistance or even remove the resistance start. Just again focusing on the movement without any kind of resistance or weight, and just focusing on opening up the chest muscles. Alternatively, increasing resistance, so making it harder and more challenging to pull your chest open. And then for reps and sets, we've gone for 10 with 20 seconds rest with 3 sets. Next exercise is, I kind of called this forward shoulder push through. So attaching a resistance band to a door and just kind of bringing the arm forward again, working on the chest and the shoulders and the back muscles, all just kind of increasing their pliability and their flexibility, and working on how far we can move that shoulder forward. And then kind of similar progressions and regressions, decreasing resistance, increasing resistance, or again, maybe removing if we have to, and just focusing on a different kind of movement technique. Then we have the side shoulder pull, so similar but facing sideways this time. We're using the opposite arm and bringing it across, opening up the chest again, and then again similar progressions and regressions with increasing or decreasing resistance. Then the final exercise for functional movement is a press-up alphabet draw, whatever you want to call it, in the press-up position, and we're just focusing on moving the arms and kind of moving them in different directions. Again, focusing on the chest and the shoulder to increase the range of motion and stability within those areas. So phase 3, strengthening, we have first exercise, which is press-ups. We can see here, so we have normal press-ups, or we have kind of decline to make it a bit harder, or incline, which you can see here. So we've got decline press-ups making it harder, or press-ups on knees. You could do them on knees maybe to make them slightly easier for yourself to start with. And then kind of a really kind of challenging progression is handstand press-ups, and this may be against the wall, but it's really going to challenge and build up the strength in the shoulder area. And for here, I've gone for 10 reps of kind of a basic kind of structure of 10 reps, 20 seconds rest and 3 sets. Next, pull-ups. So slightly harder exercise. We can see here. Now, to make these easier, we could do negative pull-ups or assisted pull-ups with like a stool or something. As it's going to still strengthen the exercise because it is a difficult exercise to do, but it's going to be slightly easier than your traditional non-assisted pull-ups, or a progression of that, which is weighted pull-ups. So this may be attaching a dumbbell or a weight plate to your body and having to pull that up as well. Due to this being a slightly harder exercise, I have gone for lower reps, only 5 this time, with 20 seconds rest again, and the three sets. Then we have the shoulder press, with weight, can be seen here. To make this harder, increase the weight, maybe do single arm. To make it easier, obviously decrease the weight, or like with some of the previous exercises in other phases, adding just no weight, just focusing on bringing the shoulders up, pressing upwards, a different kind of movement, but it's still gonna maybe not strengthen as much, but it's gonna focus on that movement ready for when you do add weight, and then strengthen the exercise, and then strengthen the shoulder and the muscles around that area. Reps 10, again 3 sets, 20 seconds rest. Final exercise, lat raises, can be seen here. Make them harder, make them easier. Regressions include decreasing the weight with some of the other exercises, and again no weight as well. It's not going to necessarily strengthen, so maybe we could put this in phase 2, but it's gonna work on the kind of moving those shoulders in a different position, ready for when we can add weight and we can start to strengthen the areas. Making them harder, again increasing the weight or single arm lat raises. Then finally we have the sport specific phase. Now there isn't really a lot of sport specific stuff we can do for a sport like football and an injury like a shoulder dislocation. But what I have included here is running. But we're not just gonna run kind of traditional. I've put here in the notes section, really focus on driving the arms, really bringing them up as high as we can, working the shoulders. And to make this easier, okay, maybe we could jog, we could decrease the speed, still going to focus on driving the arms though, and then alternatively jogging on the spot, or maybe not even kind of just standing still, but really just focusing, driving the arms up and down, because this is ultimately what we're going to be doing in football. We're going to be running, we're going to be sprinting, and so we need to get these shoulder muscles ready for when we do go back into a match. And then making it harder, so adding weights or increasing the weights, just really helping to strengthen and get the kind of experience back of driving the arms and running whilst we're in a football match. And then for reps, not necessarily traditional reps, but I'm going for 1 minute, 30 seconds rest, and then we're going to repeat this 3 times.